What's up, fellas? Welcome back to another episode. And today's episode is going to be a bit more interesting, I would say, because we are actually going to discuss a graph. Oh, wait, to the other side. So here's the graph. I'm gonna edit it in post. There it is. It should be there already. I came home earlier this day from a party, and I wanted to check out what's new with the world, what's kind of happening, what's cracking out there. I opened my Instagram because that seems to be my main source of information whenever I want to get this type of stuff. And this is the first thing that pops up. Imagine my surprise when I open it and you find comments of people saying how true it is, how how awesome it is, how eye-opening it is, and you're just staring there like, what the fuck am I witnessing? Like, what is this exactly? So I would like to do a special episode where we discuss this graph and at the same time pretty much discuss some social issues, right? First thing that made me laugh about the graph is the title. It's like it's all connected. It's like it sounds like one of those phrases the tinfoil hat people or somebody would make uh, when making their speech or something like it's all connected. The Jews they own the banks and the Rothschilds they bought stocks and that's why I don't have any money. That's the type of vibe I'm getting here. But let's not judge a book by its cover. Let's actually look at the content. Now, the creator of the graph itself, or the creator of the graph, or whatever you can call it, the Venn diagram, I guess you call those. Yeah, I guess. I don't think he or she knows how to do a Venn diagram. We're gonna get to that a bit later, but it's not very good or clear the Venn diagram, but whatever. Let's just discuss it as it is. So we start off with five claims: racism, capitalism, environmental terrorism, settler colonialism. I hope I read that right, and patriarchy. Strong words indeed, which are supposed to talk about, I don't know, issues that's bothering us or something like that. Like I could see that somebody is bothered by the patriarchy and somebody is bothered by sexual I never know how to fucking read that word. I don't even know what it fucking means. I think it means something along those lines of people settling down and just colonization in the grand scheme of things. I guess that's what it means, but I'm not entirely sure. Environmental terrorism, capitalism, and racism, those are pretty straightforward ones. But even if you look at the graph kind of closely, it starts to get muddled up a bit. For example, let's start off with the top part, right? Racism. Now, you would ask, like, what's the definition of racism? What are we supposed to take as racist? And the answer is not so clear cut as it gets to this graph. Let me explain. For example, if you see the connection between racism and capitalism, it says white supremacy. Now, if we say racism in the general terms, that discrimination based on race, right? So, for example, let's just have an hypothetical example. If an Hispanic person doesn't serve a Chinese person because he's afraid of the coronavirus, we could call that an act of racism. And I would kind of agree because the judgment is made based on the skin and the looks of the person, right? But is that white supremacy? Because it happens in a capitalist society. What if racism happens in a socialist society? That's not white supremacy anymore. It's just plain old racism. Uh, so if this case happens in America, which I would say happens in capitalism, how is it white supremacy? Why the word white? Why not Hispanic supremacy or Asian supremacy or any other race supremacy, right? Why narrow it down to white supremacy? And then you ask, like, what's the real definition of racism for these people? And since I am an educated internet man, I will answer you this question. And it is that whenever a white person is racist towards another race, that's racism. But when it's reversed or something like that, it's not racism anymore. It's something else. I heard what the term was supposed to be exactly, but just know that it's something else. It's not racism for some reason. And then you get to the definition of capitalism. Like, how are they defining capitalism? Seems to be kind of fine, but I don't really get what capitalism and racism have to do with white supremacy exactly. I can kind of see the connection or the link between the environmental terrorism and the capitalism one, even though I do have to disagree with the individual over community part. It's a hard question, but I think I'll disagree with the proposition, not because of the graph, but because I just think that the individual is supposed to be better than the community or have more rights than the community and should not be limited by it to a certain extent. But again, let's return to the links, right? What does white supremacy have to do with either capitalism? I guess racism, yeah, but what does it have to do with capitalism really? You know, this is the thing I have with the Venn diagram. Why I said at the beginning that the people didn't know how to draw it. Because if you look at it, right, if you look at white supremacy, it's supposed to be a combination of capitalism and racism. And I don't see the fucking link. I just don't see it, right? But okay, let's move on, right? So we've got environmental terrorism. I think that's pretty clear on what that means. Sexual colonialism. I think that's pretty clear on what that means. Man destroys nature in between. Okay, all good. Looks fine. I even would dare to say that I agree to a certain extent. You know, colonization doesn't really care that much about nature or about trees and animals. And I would even dare to say some native people that live there and native settlements that have been there. You know, colonization comes, takes everything there is, and leaves with everything there is to be left with, right? And then we again get into weird connections that I just don't see happening. So far, we have established maybe one strong link: man destroys nature, and one kind of a weak one in a way, a weaker one. But you know, let's give it the let's give it the let's give it a chance, and let's just say we have established two strong links so far from the graph, right? So now we go to patriarchy. And suddenly, this is one of the weirdest links I have. If somebody can explain it in the comment section, I would be very, very glad, because I just don't see how it's connected at all. You have toxic masculinity in this upper quadrant or whatever it is, and you have racism. How is racism in any way connected to toxic masculinity? That is beyond my understanding. So, for those of you who don't know toxic masculinity or haven't not heard the term, it was a term that is supposed to describe male features or male attributes that make the life of everybody miserable, and therefore they're toxic, they're bad, because men bad in this day and era. But what does that have to do with racism? How is racism affecting this problem? And same here, misogyny and colonization, colonialism, and whatever. How when you add patriarchy and this bullshit, how do you get misogyny out of that equation? How do you get this? Why? Or how? Or why is it in the middle? I still don't get this part. These two connections are horrific. I don't understand what racism has to do with toxic masculinity and sexual or with misogyny. Patriarchy, yeah, okay. Patriarchy, toxic masculinity, and misogyny. I could see the link. And I could give them a chance and say, okay, just explain it to me. But this is just too fucking. I don't even know how to call this. This is not how you do a Venn diagram. This is what I mentioned in the beginning, and I will repeat myself. These people don't seem to understand that this part here, the part that is not in this circle or this circle, is supposed to be the combination of those circles. It's supposed to be the part which is equal, which when you combine these two together, for example, patriarchy and racism, you should get toxic masculinity, except you don't. Because racism has nothing to do with toxic masculinity. Or maybe it does. Maybe somebody will prove me wrong in the comments. Maybe I'm just ignorant. And all of that leads to violence. Ooh. So if we get rid of racism, yeah, let's just kind of sum up what we learned today from the graph. I'm getting real tired because, as I said, I was at a party and I'm still mildly fucking drunk while doing this video, and I'm falling asleep talking about this stupid graph. So let's just wrap it up, boys. Now, violence. We want to solve violence because violence is bad. So what does the graph suggest we do? As I'm looking at it, the graph suggests we go full Kaczynski into a socialist, accepting, matriarchal society that doesn't colonize. Now, if you believe that that is going to happen someday, you're stupid. You're fucking stupid. There is no way, not one of those things on that list is gonna happen. Not all five of them at this. And whoever drew this graph or diagram or whatever you call those things, please just for the love of God, think about it for more than 5 seconds. Think about what you're doing and don't just put random big words in between other circles and think it's gonna fly. It might fly with somebody, but not with me. I have avoided this type of bullshit. There have been so much posts that are worthy of discussion, worthy of a video on whether it was Black Lives Matter, whether it was this like socialist communist revolution on the social media, whether there was some other fucking problem, whatever where. There was just so much shit I could post here and talk about all day. But when I saw this graph, I felt this giant wave of both anger, sadness, surprise, disappointment, all negative emotions. I felt them all. This graph is the pinnacle of an education, of being an idiotic moron. This is the pinnacle. This is what all the posts, all the Instagram posts, all the Twitter screenshots have been going to. This is it. And I'm not fucking surprised that it's goddamn shit. Oh no. Whenever I look at it, I just don't want to look at it anymore. I'll close it on my desktop. I'll delete it from whatever the video is. You don't have to look at it anymore. And yeah, thank you for watching this piece of crap and me complaining about an Instagram graph for 12 minutes. And I hope to see you soon. I'll sober up tomorrow and maybe post a video or two. See ya.